So today we're going to be talking about navigating cyber essentials. It's going to be a small guide for business owners about what the considerations might be, benefits, negatives, and I'm just going to go through a list of common questions which I found online, and then we're just going to run through those and see which ones might be relevant, which ones might not be relevant, and then hopefully by the end of this give you a good understanding of what cyber essentials is, with a checklist going forwards of how you can tackle cyber essentials and what you might not know already. The first part of this, which is quite a common question, and some people might think it's a bit of a silly one, but what is cyber essentials? And it's one of those questions that many people don't know the answer to. And in a very brief, simple description, it's a guideline provided by an independent company that will give you a set checklist of are your IT needs and is your company performing to this expectation. So it's just a checklist or a guide that says, are you doing this with your IT? And those things mostly are your kind of basic requirements to be a secure company. And if you're following those, then you should be considering yourself as, quite secure. And all Cyber Essentials is just a constantly updating guideline of what you need to be doing as a business to make sure you're secure. So the basic components of Cyber Essentials start from the entire organization's security. So that's including all your phones, your emails, and any way you log into anything. So we look at Cyber Essentials as how are you logging into those things? Are you using all the security methods provided to you? And are those the correct security methods? Things like MFA, for instance, is one that is required under Cyber Essentials. If it's available, you must use it. Doing little things like that kind of falls into the security aspect of it. And then the other side of Cyber Essentials is the policy aspect. Whilst, yes, you may be operating and using all these very secure methods and you might pass the checklist on that front, but there's also the policy side of it of what do you do when X happens? So if a new user joins, are they also getting MFA? Are they also getting set up in the correct ways? And then there's also the policy for what happens if something goes bad. So you'll need to have a policy in place that says, if X happens, we will do this. So it sets you up for a very good disaster pack in case anything goes wrong, but it also sets you up for a good process pack if you're introducing new users, new hardware, new software, anything that is coming into your company. Cyber Essentials will cover that in a way that allows you to have a step-by-step process of how to operate that inside your business. So the next question on here is the assessment side of things. So the first one is Cyber Essentials assessors. What do they do? How do they operate? Now, Cyber Essentials as a whole comes in two forms. You've got your base level Cyber Essentials, but you've also got your Cyber Essentials Plus. And they have two very different levels of auditing and assessing. So Cyber Essentials, all you need to do for that one is you prepare all the documentation, all of the equipment and hardware and everything that's associated with it yourself, and then you'll send it in to an authorized assessor, such as ourselves, MF Telecom Services, who will go through your documentation and just as a first glance, do these things that you've written down, meet the tick boxes. Yeah, cool. And if you've said you're operating like that, then we believe you, we trust you. And that's enough for your Cyber Essentials. That says this company is doing these things, they have these policies in place. Now, where that will differ from Cyber Essentials Plus is that Cyber Essentials Plus will have an audit, because Cyber Essentials is a lot easier to get because we'll just look at it and we'll say, okay, you've written those things down and that's what you're doing. However, Plus, we'll read it and we'll go, those are things you're saying you're doing. We're going to come have a look and make sure you are doing those things. And it's not to catch anyone out. It's because Cyber Essentials Plus is to fill in the gaps where people might have missed something or they had good intentions and the policy's been put in place, but it's not been actioned. So the auditing process, where an auditor such as myself, we would come to your premises, we'd go through your checklist of Cyber Essentials items, and we would identify any gaps or anything you might have missed or forgotten about, and then we'll point those out. In the circumstance that doesn't happen and you're all up to spec and everything's great, then you get your Cyber Essentials Plus. And that is just a certificate that you can say we've done the extra step and we've got proof that we have done everything that's on that Cyber Essentials Plus list. So the role of an assessor, which is another bit that comes up, is what do they do and how do they get involved? So the role of assessor is just someone like myself. We will go through your policy that you've written up, we'll go through your infrastructure, and we will have a general knowledge of how things should be laid out. Now, obviously, every business isn't the same, so you have a sheet that matches for everyone. We will take common sense and how your business operates into a fact, and then we'll assess your documentation. How does it match up against your business? And are you covered in all the ways you are? If you are, you get your certificate. If you're not, then we'll give you that feedback and we'll give you the areas you're missing. And if you're using us as an assessor, we'll also provide quotations for fixing all of those things for you. So we'll go through, this is what you're missing, this is what it would cost us to do it, but that's by no means a incentive that you should go through us. It just means that we've given you a price so you can go to your existing IT company or you can go elsewhere, and then you can get an idea of whether or not those steps to take are for you. So the big thing when it comes to assessors and auditing with Cyber Essentials, it's a bit like car insurance. The best thing to do is be honest. It just means that you're not going to get caught out on anything, or if you're embellishing the truth perhaps. Yes, everyone's got MFA, except Steve, he's not got it on his laptop. Little things like that, they do get picked up on an audit, and that is enough to fail the auditing process. And unfortunately, if you fail the auditing process, you'll have to rebook it. It's very recommended just to be honest with everything. Even if you are missing a couple bits, then it's easier to get it out in the paperwork stage than when the auditor's actually on site going, that's not up to spec. So the next question, which I've had a few questions on before, and it's a bit of a hard one to answer because it does depend on the business. It depends on how you're working, how you're operating. Is Cyber Essentials worth it? Very broad question. Generally, if you're looking at it as a guideline for how you should be operating your business, then unquestionably it is a very valuable tool set to have at your disposal, because as I say, it's that guideline that says this is how you should be minimally operating in your business to be secure. That's not to say belt and braces, you're really secure. This is just the essentials, as its name says. So if you're not up to spec with Cyber Essentials, then it's a bit of a time to self-reflect and realize what improvements should we be making in our business. So the first part of this, which is the cost versus benefit. The cost is annual because you have to make sure that you're keeping up to date with Cyber Essentials. Now, that's not to say you have to do it every year. If you don't have any contractual obligation, as some companies may need to be Cyber Essentials certified or ISO 27001, anything like that, you may need to be contractually obligated to have those certificates. Now, if that's not the case for you, then maybe annually isn't the question. You could do it every other year. Then this would basically give you that updated checklist every couple of years to go through and would find out, have you done all the latest parts of it? There's something might change between now and next year, and then you wouldn't know about it because you're not on the annual version of the certificate. But cost versus benefit, it does open up quite a lot of doors. There's quite a few government contracts. There's quite a few industries that many businesses won't work with companies that don't have certain certifications, or it will give you preferential treatment when going after those contracts if you do have those certificates. So Cyber Essentials is a very large organization and a very well spread certificate. Many companies have it, so it's very well recognized. So if you're going out there and tendering for a deal and you say to a customer, oh yeah, you can trust us with your data, we're Cyber Essentials Plus, it adds that extra layer of confidence from your customers. That on its own, I would say, is worth the price, but then you also have the security aspects, where it's highlighting things you may not be operating under correctly or things you may need to change to make sure you're operating your business safely. It's essentially an insurance policy to say we've checked everything we need to. We've not left any of the doors open, and all of our data, all of our IT requirements and all of our policies are up to spec and they meet all of our requirements. Ultimately, yes, I think it's very worth it, but it is dependent on your business. Would that be beneficial to, a sandwich shop? Potentially not. It does depend on how you operate, what you do for your business, and the kind of people you deal with. One final point on the Cyber Essentials cost kind of analysis would be that many people might say it's very expensive for doing it every year, but I would certainly say more expensive would be a data breach. So this Cyber Essentials checklist gives you the bare minimum protection, and if you're not up to speed with this and then you have a data breach, that's going to cost you a lot more, especially in legal or data recovery or any of the kind of after effects, than it would just to make sure you're certified on Cyber Essentials. That consideration of long-term benefits, and also that you're not having to deal with any cyber attacks, or at least preventing them as best you can, it's definitely a financial benefit in that sense. So the next question, which I've had quite a few times, is how long does Cyber Essentials last? Which I've covered briefly in the last segment. And also, is it difficult to learn and implement? It lasts for 1 year. It's an annual service where you get audited or you'll get checked every single year. But after you've done the initial verification, it becomes a lot easier because you already have all the policies, you already have all of the documentation, and you already have a lot of the harder bits done. So then afterwards, it does become cheaper because you're not having to make any changes. You're just getting someone to come in and say, right, yeah, you're still operating under the same expectation of Cyber Essentials, and you're meeting all of those requirements. So it's a yearly service, and I do recommend keeping up to date with it because obviously if you drop off a year or two and then you decide we do need it again, then you might have to restart the policy process because quite a few elements may have changed, and it would be easier just to start from the beginning. On to the second part of that question, which is is it difficult to learn and is it difficult to implement? A varied question. Does depend on your industry experience. Obviously, if you're watching this and you're an IT professional at a business and you're the one that's going to be managing this, then you really have quite a lot of experience that you may not realise applies to Cyber Essentials. As it is the basics of security, a lot of the features in it is just recommending you implement things you've already been doing, just on a larger scale and with the documentation to say that you've done it, and the documentation to say that you will do it if anything changes. It's not too hard to implement or learn if you're already in the industry of IT. If you're not in the industry of IT and you outsource your IT to a support company, then they generally will do it on your behalf and we'll do the assessing and the auditing process for them. And then we can liaise with them on your behalf to make sure that they are operating to the expectations you have and make sure that they are implementing everything in your company that you require to stay secure. A second part of that is it's not so much hard to learn or hard to implement, but it is the time frame required. Because there is so much information that is covered throughout Cyber Essentials, it can be quite a lengthy process. When you're getting all the information about all your devices, how you're operating, and everything surrounding that, it can take quite a few months to get all of the data consolidated and then all the policy to support that completed. So something to consider when you're looking at your Cyber Essentials is the timeframes required, especially if you're setting this up in preparation to go for a specific contract. Because if your contract's going to be up in 2 months and you want to go and target that customer, but they need you to have Cyber Essentials, obviously consider that there is a significant time frame required for getting certified. So as a final point, I'm just going to cover off the difference between Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus a little bit more. With the Cyber Essentials Plus, because you have that second level of auditing, you actually have someone come in, you have a physical check against everything you've got to make sure it's safe and secure. So when you are assessing for Cyber Essentials Plus, you have to do it within 3 months of completing your Cyber Essentials. You do your Cyber Essentials, then you have a 3-month countdown for when you need to get your Cyber Essentials Plus done by. Otherwise, you'll have to redo your Cyber Essentials Basic in order to get certified in your Cyber Essentials Plus. So that is a consideration, especially with the timeframes required of setting everything up, that if you know you're going to go for your Cyber Essentials Plus, it's better to get it booked in, ready to go, within the timeframe of your Cyber Essentials being completed. So thank you for listening, and I hope that was informative and gives you a general overview of how Cyber Essentials works, its benefits, and the costs associated. So just to give you a little bit of information about us, we're MF Telecom Services, and we can give you a personalised quote based on the size of your business. So not just a generic, this is what it's going to cost, which many companies do offer. We'll give you a personalised cost for assessing and writing the policy and also implementing it. So if you don't have an IT support and you've been doing everything yourself, we can come in, we can basically do it all from start to finish and get you ready to go with Cyber Essentials or Cyber Essentials Plus. So thanks again, and look forward to speaking to you soon.